Okay, welcome to our demonstration of NetLab, our remote laboratory setup. This is the first screen that is presented to users. It's just a standard sort of login screen, so I will log in as an instructor. And this will generally ask us to run through a couple of connection tests first, but I've done this earlier today, so I won't repeat it, but it does require some quick tests each new session you start up. This is the instructor page. It's a little bit more complex than the student setup, and I've already requested access to a particular lab. This one is a networking lab. It has a range of switches, routers and firewalls within it, which we'll have a look at a bit later on. This is real equipment. It is not a simulation. It is real routers and switches and some virtual machines hosted on a server. So the virtual machines are real instances of Windows in this case that are running on our servers. We have down here a scheduler and file manager, account manager, which the instructor would normally use. And if we want to go into the lab, we just simply click on the Enter Lab. This presents us with our topology that we're going to be using in this particular lab, along with the virtual machines, routers, firewall, switches, etc. Okay, once we've entered the system, we get a choice of labs. Here we can see several labs that are up and available. This one's running right at this moment, and I can enter that, but I can also see that other people are using it at this point, what class it's for, and the particular lab it's configured for. Here we have the layout. It's a basic switch pod which is running our software-defined radio. The one I'm interested in at the moment is here. It's just about to come due in a couple of minutes. It's our multi-purpose networking lab. So we'll have a look at that in just a moment. But this is the instructor setup. Here we can set up a schedule for lab times, which I'll go through in a second. Manage different devices, create our various users, classes, just our personal settings. We can add curriculum to the server, which we're only using in our network labs at the moment, and we can create custom configurations, which is what we've done with the database, the advanced communications and some other units. We can then assign these various pods that we create from the pod designer over to particular classes, and of course we have a chat program as well. Right, so once we've selected our lab from, if I just go back and I'll show you there, we go in and we go Enter Lab, and here it is. We can start up any one of these particular devices. Now, as this is real equipment, starting the device, initializing, does take a significant period of time, 5 to 10 minutes depending on what equipment it is. Here's one I started a bit earlier. Always have to go and tell it to run the JavaScript. So make sure you do that, and we can see that it started up. This is just a virtual machine running on our server, and we can do whatever we want to do with this. Just runs as normal. Okay, and we can use this actually to, if we set everything up, to check connectivity. We can have it as servers, whatever we like. So if we go to router 2, we again have to go through and allow it to run, just because of the security settings. We see that we get a standard router interface, and this, as I said, is a real router running with no configuration in it at the moment. Alright, so from here we could actually configure our router, but we can also share or take control from anyone else that's on there. So we can have more than one person working on this particular piece of hardware at any one time. And when they type something in, the other person will actually see who is typing that particular command. So we know that if somebody's playing around or doing things they shouldn't be doing, we can actually see who it is. Now, this also allows us to capture every keystroke. We can set up configurations beforehand to shorten the amount of time people have to spend on the equipment, and also provide feedback directly to the users, which we're currently working on at the moment. Now we have multiple tabs once we've loaded our topology. We can have actions where we can power off or power cycle, scrub devices, recover passwords if somebody hasn't cleared the passwords when they're finished on each of the devices. We can power off or power on the Windows machines. We can look at the status, make sure everything's on, whether it's in normal, online or not, how things are connected and who is actually connected. So you can see here that I'm sitting on PCC. We can load files and our configuration from previously, and more importantly, we can then go and save the files. So we can save our configuration if we're running out of time, save our configuration and come back to it later. Right, so we have the ability to look at our classes. Here's a class list. We've got, at this point in time, 2 locations set up. Our Bentley has 10 classes currently running, and if we go in and have a look, we can see each of the classes and the units that these belong to. So we could go into either one of these. I know that, there we are. There are the instructors. There's myself, Naznan and Raymond that are using this at this point in time. Raymond is over in Malaysia at the moment, Fode's in Malaysia, and we set the classes up from here. Simple to add a class. We then associate which particular pod we want allocated to it. So in this case, from last semester, we have the MIRI Datacomms unit and which pods are associated with it, and we can do that from here, but I'm not authorized. Right, this is a screen capture of a session that we ran some time ago, so I'll just talk you through it because the audio on it's not particularly good. Here we have myself acting as the instructor in one location where we were giving the talk. We have Naznan, who's over in a separate building on campus though, and Lakmal, who's actually running this from Sri Lanka. They're sharing a lab, and we can see here that we have multiple windows open talking to a switch and a switch here. It's a fairly simple lab, and we can actually see who's doing the work. So if we look down the bottom here, you can see that Lakmal has departed the connection, and previously we were working with Naznan. So we have multiple switches open, and we have, in actual fact, there was 3 people working here, and we can see what they're doing on the NetLab system. We're using WebEx as a communication method. This allows us to very quickly and easily set up video and audio communication with each other, and share our desktops, see what each other are doing, as well as being able to look at the lab equipment we're using.